Joining me now is Kristin Urquiza. Her father, Mark, died from COVID back in June. She recently, of course, was a guest of Joe Biden's at last week's presidential debate, also appeared in the Democratic National Committee convention. Kristin, thank you for being on the show. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So let me get your reaction to what we just heard from President Trump, the president telling Americans not to let coronavirus dominate your life and get out there. Your reaction to what you heard in that tone?
My reaction is pretty simple. This man is the most dangerous person on the planet who is essentially telling the American public that our loved ones, people like my dad, Mark, who died, are suckers and losers for not having the immune system to overcome this virus like him. And it is an insult to me and every single person who has gone through what I've gone through, something that I would not wish upon my worst enemy.
As you talk about being a family member, seeing somebody struggle with coronavirus, would you say that your dad had a choice to let coronavirus dominate his life?
No, my dad was the strongest person I know. He worked so hard to try to beat this virus. He was even telling me the day before he went into the ICU that he was fighting, that he would be home next week, and that he was committed to living and getting back into his community. My dad had to wait 6 days to go to the hospital once he started having coronavirus symptoms. He is such like other people across the country who are told to go home and wait until they can't breathe. People don't get the same treatment in this country as the president or his inner circle. And I think that what we're seeing on full display right now are 2, maybe even 3 Americas, where the president gets special treatment and everybody else gets shafted.
In the White House, and we've talked about this, you felt played a role ultimately in your father's diagnosis, the messaging from the president.
We just saw last week a study and research from Cornell come out, underlying that more than a third of misinformation related to coronavirus is directly linked to one person and one person only. That's Donald Trump. My dad was a Trump supporter. He listened to the president. He believed the president. Whenever the president said that we were on the other side of the pandemic and he didn't have to worry, my dad believed that. And as a result, he and so many others have been led to their graves.
The president, as we're having this conversation, Kristin, talked about wanting to, and he plans to participate in the next presidential debate in Miami. That is coming up, I think, next week, October 15th. You were at that first presidential debate. Would you attend another debate given what you saw? And what went through your mind when you heard the president on that debate stage talk about his administration's pandemic response?
I would not attend another presidential debate because I do not trust him to come into the debate following the rules. We were told in the audience that every single person in that debate hall would have passed a COVID negative test and would be wearing a mask. Simple rules that he and his cohort of vector carrying family members were unable to follow. And in addition to not wanting to put myself and others through risk, I don't think that the president is going to show up to actually talk about the issues. Instead, he's going to continue to grandstand for white supremacists in an attempt to, I think, get people to be afraid. And instead, I think that what we need to do is just focus on getting to the polls early, voting, and saying goodbye to this nightmare.
Before you go, I want to talk about your organization, Marked by COVID, which is something that you started after your dad died. This week is a week of mourning from a bunch of different groups and organizations in order to try to honor the people that we've lost in this pandemic. What is your message to the families, like your own family, who are trying to heal, who are trying to figure out a way to simultaneously, as all people dealing with grief do, move on with their lives while remembering and honoring the people they've lost?
We are very much still in this pandemic. However, we must acknowledge and recognize the hundreds of thousands of people that we have lost. And I think an essential piece of that is giving ourselves permission to mourn out loud. Our traditional mechanisms have been taken away from us, from funerals and celebrations of life. So one of the things that I am doing is hosting daily virtual vigils that are open and free to the public to start to honor and recognize those that we have lost, not only so that we can begin to heal, but that also we can commit to never forget so that this will never happen again.
Thank you for checking out our YouTube channel. Why don't you subscribe? It's really easy. Just click on that button down there. And for more news from MSNBC, click on any of these videos here for the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more videos from MSNBC with our newsletters. Head over to msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up.